Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this video I have been debating on making for a while now. I just have not had the time to make it, so if you are ready, grab some popcorn, get comfy, because I am foreseeing this being a long one. But in this video today, I'm going to be giving you guys an overview of the entirety of dirt racing. But before we get into it, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel down below if you have not already. I also have YouTube memberships. I have not shouted those out in a while. I have 3 tiers. Any of them really helps me out a ton. And with that being said, let's get right on into the video. Dirt track racing is a form of motorsport held on clay or dirt surface banked oval racetracks. Dirt racing started in the United States before World War I and became widespread during the 1920s and 1930s, using both automobiles and motorcycles. Spreading throughout Japan and often running on horse tracks, there are a myriad of race cars used, from open-wheel sprint cars to modifieds to stock cars. While open-wheel race cars are purposefully built for racing, stock cars, also known as fendered cars, can either be purposefully built race cars or street vehicles that have been modified to varying degrees. There are hundreds of local and regional racetracks throughout the United States and also Japan. The sport is also popular in countries such as Canada, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. A dirt track's racing surface may be composed of any soil, although most seasoned dirt racers probably consider a moist, properly prepared clay oval their favorite dirt racing surface. Preparing a dirt track correctly for racing is both traditional and a learned craft, as well as a long and complex job requiring hours of work. Typical machines used in track preparation include a grader, a cultivator or rotiller, 2 types of rollers, and a water truck. Although the process varies at different racetracks around the world, after an event, a track's rutted surface is first graded and smoothed back into the contours of the track's layout. Then, further smooth and tamp loose soil shoveled into any soft spots. The freshly smoothed track surface is then graded with a cultivator or rototiller to loosen the now compacted upper layer and assist with greater water penetration for moisture track on race day. Now that you know what the surface of a racetrack is, we're going to be going into what kind of cars race on these surfaces. Each racetrack or sponsoring organization maintains a rulebook outlining each class of race car, which includes dimensions, engine size, equipment requirements, and prohibitants. The requirements for each class are usually coordinated with multiple racetracks to allow the widest available venue for each type of race car. Many tracks support 2 types of racing in their programs, open-wheel cars and stock cars. Both types range from large and powerful V8 engines to small but yet still powerful 4-cylinder engines. Some of the smaller open-wheel cars have classes for single-cylinder engines. Depending on the class, the cars may even have wings to aid in handling at such high speeds. One of the biggest classes of race cars are open-wheel cars. Open-wheel cars are generally manufactured with tubular frames and a body purchased for that particular class. The wheels of these vehicles are not protected by fenders. They are exposed or open. This includes cars like dwarf cars, which are 5/8 replicas of 1928 to 1948 coupes and sedans, mod lights, which are 1,000 to 1,250 cc motorcycle engines, and 5/8 replica of full-size modifieds, but they are equally as fast. And one that is particularly popular amongst youth racers are go-karts. Now, if you don't know what a go-kart is, racing karts mostly use small 2-stroke or 4-stroke engines. However, as of 2022, there has been a small-scale adoption of electric motors in racing karts. 4-stroke engines can be standard air-cooled industrial-based engines, sometimes with small modifications, developing from 5 to 20 horsepower. Briggs & Stratton, Tecmusen, I know I said that wrong, Kohler, Robin, Honda, and Torini are manufacturers as such engines. And going down the list of open-wheel cars, you have mini sprints, which are 600 to 1200cc motorcycle engine race cars that usually have either a top wing or no top wing, just like they have in their name, mini sprints. They are just mini sprint cars as they come wingless and winged. Then, of course, you have winged sprint cars such as the 410s, the 360, and the 305s. Then you have the non-wing sprint cars, and then the Silver Crown cars. And then you have the midgets that they race at places such as the Chili Bowl, and USAC has their own tour for them. Then you have the 3/4 midgets, the quarter midget, and 600 and 270 micro sprints. Next, we're going to take a look at some racing series that are made up of open-wheel race cars. First series we're going to be talking about is the Kubota High Limit series. Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson first announced the creation of this series in July of 2022. The 2023 inaugural season consisted of 12 events, which were all held midweek. Kyle Larson was crowned the series' first champion, winning 5 of the 12 races scheduled. In 2024, Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson expanded the series to more than 50 race nights and increased the purse to over $5 million in total prize money for the season, and Brad Sweet would claim the 2024 championship with 10 event wins. And this series would add a charter system. Now, if you do not know what a charter system is, I will give you a rough explanation. I couldn't find a whole lot of information on exactly what their charter system was, but this is what it is with NASCAR. A racing charter is an agreement between NASCAR and a set number of teams that says those teams will show up to race in the sport for as long as the agreement stands. Teams with a higher charter are guaranteed a spot in every single race. So, basically what I'm gathering is if they get a charter, that means they will have a guaranteed spot in the race over a local driver from that local track, such as when they race at places like Butler. A team that travels with the series will have a guaranteed spot on that roster, even if they get there after the set time is up, and the amount of cars that are supposed to be there are there. Next, we're going to be covering USAC, which is also known as the United States Automobile Club. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a longer segment because they have multiple open-wheel series underneath the USAC name. First, we're going to talk about the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown is earned in USAC racing when a driver claims all 3 national championships, the Silver Crown, Sprint Car, and Midgets. Only 2 drivers, Tony Stewart in 1995 and J.J. Yeley in 2003, have achieved the Triple Crown in a single season. 6 other drivers, Panko Carter, Dave Garland, Jerry Coons Jr., Tracy Hines, Chris Windham, and Logan Seavey have claimed all 3 championships at least once in their career. In 2012, Mike Curb and Corey Ajakanjanian became the only car owners to win the Triple Crown by winning all 3 championships in the same year. USAC had awarded a national championship until A.J. Foyt won his 7th title in 1979. it has been announced that it will begin awarding a national championship again starting in 2010. A driver's best 25 finishes are counted towards the championship, and the 2010 winner received $40,000. Points are accumulated in the 3 series, sprints, midgets, and Silver Crown. Brian Clausen of Noblesville, Indiana, claimed the inaugural championship, topping runner-up Levi Jones by 14 points. Now, from 2010 to 2022, I will read off the drivers that won the national championship. Brian Clausen would win from 2010 to 2012. Then Tracy Hines would win in 2013 and 2014. Dave Darland would win in 2015, and something that all of these drivers have in common, they are all from the state of Indiana. Brian Clausen from Noblesville, Tracy Hines from Newcastle, and Dave Darland from Kokomo, Indiana. Now back, we have Brady Bacon in 2016 from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, Justin Grant from Ione, California in 2017, and then 2018 to 2019, back-to-back wins from Tyler Courtney from Indianapolis, Indiana. Then we have Chris Windham in 2020 from Canton, Illinois. And then 2021 and 2022 are back-to-back from Justin Grant from Ione, California. So you could tell that Indiana has dominated this event from between 2010 and 2022. And USAC has had their fair share of tragedy, such as the 1978 plane crash. On April 23, 1978, returning from a race at Trenton Speedway in New Jersey, 8 USAC officials plus the pilot were killed when their 10-seat Piper Navajo Chieftain crashed during a thunderstorm 25 miles southeast of Indianapolis. The people that were killed included Ray Marquette, USAC's Vice President of Public Affairs, and a former sports writer for the Indianapolis Star. Frank DeLeroy, the chairman of USAC Technical Committee. Shim Malone, starter for USAC races and head of its midget racer division. Judy Phillips, Stan Worley, Ross Teagarden, Don Peabody, Dr. Bruce White, Don Mullendore, and he was the owner and pilot of the plane. The incident closely followed the death of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway owner, Tony Holman. The plane crash came at a time when IndyCar owners and drivers were demanding changes from USAC. Aside from the Indianapolis 500, USAC events were not well attended, and the owners felt that USAC poorly negotiated television rights. The owners also wanted increased payouts, especially at Indy. Though some think the plane crash was used as an opportunistic way to force change into the sport, it was merely an unfortunate coincidence. The seed of dissent had been growing for several years before the accident, and claims the crash was an immediate cause for the 1979 CART/USAC split are considered, for the most part, unfounded. And the last sprint car series we're going to be taking a look at is the World of Outlaws, also known as the greatest show on dirt. A World of Outlaws car must weigh at least 1,425 pounds with the driver in the car. The mandated 410 cubic inch engine produces a little over 900 horsepower and uses mechanical fuel injection and must run on methanol fuel. Just like last time, I'm going to go over the winner from 2010 to 2024. So, in 2010 and 11, Jason Myers would win. 2012, Donnie Schatz would take the win. 2013 would be Darren Pittman. And then Donnie Schatz from 2014 to 2018 would go on a 5-year tear and win every single championship. And then Brad Sweet would take 3 in a row. And then he would make that 4 in a row in 2022. And then yet again 5 in a row in 2023. And David Gravel would win the most recent championship in 2024. The first winner was Steve Kinser in 1978 and would three-peat from 1978 to 1980, and then yet again would win 1983, 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987, and 1988, with Bobby Davis ending his run, but yet again in 1990, 91, 92, 93, and 94, he would win on another tear yet again. The all-time A-main winners include Steve Kinser at number 1 with 690, Sammy Swindell in second with 394, Donnie Schatz in third with 316, and then a big drop to Mark Kinser in fourth with 203, and then Doug Wolfgang with 140. Some of the most visited tracks in this race series include Eldora Speedway, Knoxville Raceway, Huset Speedway, Williams Grove, Jackson Motorplex, Skagit Speedway, Williams Grove, and Federated Auto Parts Raceway at I-55, just to name a few. Next up, we are going to be taking a look at the dirt modifieds, also known as UMP/IMCA modifieds, and even big block modifieds. We're gonna dive right in. Well, first up, we have small block modifieds. The small block, or 358 modifieds, emerged from NASCAR's Sportsman division, which had formed in 1950 as NASCAR's short track race division. The Sportsman cars were older model cars and could be modified, but not as much as the modified series cars. By 1967, the limitations had evolved to include small block engines, a single carburetor, and pump gasoline. The norm for many NASCAR-sanctioned tracks was that modifieds and sportsmen raced side by side, but top-finishing sportsmen received bonus money and separate points were tallied for both divisions. Several non-sanctioned venues in the Northeast continued to run combined sport classes and old and new-bodied sportsmen. Notably, Watertown Speedway in northern New York had a shared rulebook with Kingston Speedway in Ontario, Canada, limiting engines for their primary class to the old Ford Flathead V8 and Chevrolet inline 6-cylinders. In 1968, they updated their rules to allow the newer small block engine, and nearby Evans Mills Speedway opened with similar rules. Propelled by the strong economics of southern Canada's metropolitan areas, the small block became the premier class in the St. Lawrence River Valley. Next up, we have the Super Dirt Car Series. The Drivers Independent Racetracks, also known as Dirt, was acquired by Boundless Racing in 2004, which had purchased the World of Outlaws in February of that year. In November 2004, Boundless Racing changed its names to Dirt Motorsports and began doing business as the World Racing Group. In December of that same year, Dirt Motorsports bought Midwestern sanctioning body UMP. And as well as small block, they also have big block modifieds, which run upwards of 900 horsepower and also, as you could guess, have big block motors. The more common modifieds that you might hear of are IMCA and UMP modifieds. Organized in 1915, the International Motor Contest Association, also known as IMCA, is the oldest racing sanctioning body in the U.S. IMCA introduced the E-Mod, or Economic Modified, in 1979. It has become one of the most popular dirt racing classes due to its simple design, lightweight, high power, and ability to adapt to varying track conditions easily. Most IMCA-style classes also boast a claim rule, where a racer may buy a competitor's engine for a small amount of money, usually around $500. This rule was intended to keep engine prices from skyrocketing. The IMCA sports mods appear very similar to their brethren, but have distinctly different engines. The AFCO Kids mods appear the same as others, but sport full-tube chassis and, by rules, have to have Ford 2300cc inline 4-cylinder engines. Sanctioning bodies, Wissota Promoters Association, and United Midwestern Promoters, also known as UMP, also have classes that are almost identical to IMCA's modifieds, with a small few exceptions. The AMRA, or American Motor Racing Association, also follows this popular format for modifieds. NASCAR drivers Ken Schrader and Kenny Wallace own and race UMP modifieds on and off weekends from NASCAR. Some tracks sanction modifieds like IMCA specifications. IMCA designed a new lower-cost class of sport mod cars in 2004 to complement its modified division. The division is divided into Northern Sports Mods and Southern Sports Mods divisions. The Northern Sports Mods have a few small differences from the Southern Sports Mods in the body of the car. These cars are somewhat smaller and have less powerful engines. They can be differentiated from IMCA modifieds because the car has a break in the body that extends from the rear roof to the spoiler at the rear. Next up, we're moving to stock cars. First up, we have pure stocks. These are full-bodied cars with very few changes allowed from the factory models sold for general use on the streets. Changes can be limited to a certain type of tire, making some parts of the car stronger to withstand the punishment of racing and so forth. All cars used on the racetrack are required to have a full set of roll cages and safety harnesses to protect the drivers in case of rollovers like this one.
Shows the way in turn for the first time.
And the Hornet class used to be like these, but a lot more tracks are now adapting rules that are making it so much more easy to modify Hornets with aftermarket parts. And then we also have street stocks. These are also full-bodied cars, but can have changes to the frames, engines, tires, and some changes to the suspension. They have to have body shapes like actual cars that are used on the street directly from the factory, as with the pure stocks. All of them are required to have roll cages and safety harnesses to protect the drivers. Then you have the super stock. Super stock cars are very similar to late models and can be built from the ground up by racers. They have limited engines and other restrictions items that keep them from being full-blown late models. They are much more powerful than street stocks and factory stocks. It is an intermediate class between the street stock and modifieds and late models. The bodies are aftermarket and made by the racers in the general shape of the brand being represented by Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge, etc. Current dirt super late models feature steel-constructed two-frame chassis with aluminum bodies that give them the sleek aerodynamic appearance of a stock race car, but there are nothing stock about these 2,300-pound machines. The cars are powered by an 850 horsepower motor that can turn in excess of 9,000 RPM. These engines are based on V8 Chevrolet, Chrysler, and Ford power plants. These cars are considered to be the most sophisticated cars in dirt racing and hit speeds well over 100 miles per hour and slide around the dirt corners. They are raced at dirt tracks anywhere on the country from 1/5 mile to 1 mile long. Motor builders include Hatfield Racing, J. Dickens Racing Engines, Durham Racing Engines, Cornet Racing Engines, Big for being the motor building company for Scott Bloomquist early in his career, Sheared Engine Development, Gatory Racing Engines, Clement Racing Engines, Custom Racing Engines, Vic Hill Racing Engines, and Pro Power Engines. Most racing series and special events offer different motor options with the use of different total vehicle weights to create an even playing field. Open motor. There is no displacement limit with this type of motor. Most open motors exceed 400 cubic inches, with a 380 small block is also a common open motor. These motors utilize aluminum blocks and heads and often have specially welded cams. The cars which run these motors must weigh at least 2,300 pounds with the driver inside. Spec motors are built to the series specifications. The motor can either be steel, aluminum, or a combination of both. Spec motors typically cannot exceed 358 cubic inches or 5.87 liters. Cars using this motor option weigh in at 2,300 pounds and run a 10 or 12 inch spoiler. An all-steel motor, steel blocks, and steel heads, a maximum of 362 cubic inches, and weigh in at either 2,200 or 2,150 pounds, depending on the series. Cars with an all-steel motor must run 10 or 12-inch spoilers. Limited late models and late model stocks have the same body and rules as super late models. The main difference between the two classes is the motor rules. Engine limitations typically include a maximum engine displacement size and certain required cylinder heads and angles. The maximum compression ratios, the maximum carburetor size, suspension rules typically forbid the use of expensive canister shocks. Tire choice is also typically limited to a certain tire, such as Hoosier D55 spec tires. And then we have crate late models. Crate late models use Chevrolet small block engines that have been sealed with a special tag. Typical motors include the GM 602 and the GM 604 engines. Recently, the GM CT525 crate has been a popular choice of racers, and some aftermarket Ford motors have surfaced in competition as well. Crate engines are sealed at the intake manifold, cylinder head, front cover, and oil pan with special twist-off bolts. Crate engines must not be altered, modified, or changed in any way from factory specifications. Crate late models have 3 Southern touring regions: the Durance Lane Dirt Late Model Series, the United Crate Racing Alliance, and the Fast Track Crate Late Model Series. Now we're going to go over some big late model races that happen every year. We have the Bama Brawl, the Ice Bowl, the Wild West Shootout, the Winter Nationals that just took place, the King of the Commonwealth, Show Me 100, the $100,000 Late Model Dream, the Firecracker 100, the Silver Dollar Nationals, the Prairie Dirt Classic, the USA 100, the USA Nationals, the World 100, the North-South 100, the Topless 100, the Hillbilly 100, the World 100, the Knoxville Late Model Nationals, the Shootout Georgia, the Pittsburgher, Blue-Gray 100, the Dirt Track World Championship, the World Finals, the National 100, the Turkey Bowl, the Gobbler, and the Gateway Dirt Nationals held every year at the Dome. And the last part of this video is going to be going over what the racing program at either a big race or just your local dirt track would look like. When we're talking about what goes into a night of racing at a local dirt track, you got to be thinking of really 3 main things. You got to be thinking of qualifying, heat races, and the feature. One thing some people tend to forget is the B and C mains. Now, most local dirt tracks don't run C mains because the car count just isn't big enough. They will run B mains where generally either the top 2 or 5 will make it into the feature. However, at events like the Chili Bowl, they have the B main, the C main, the D main, the E main, the F main. They have so many different alphabet mains. But that event also gathers like 300 race cars. A local dirt track across like 4 classes might get 120. I think the record that I saw at Butler was 147, I think, across 4 classes, and it was like 50 of them were front-wheel drives. So that's kind of the gist. Some tracks will do a qualifying dash where it's basically you race to see where you start in the A main, but a lot of tracks just do like a pill draw system to see who gets the top spot. And with that being said, that is really the gist of dirt racing. I hope I used this video to inform you guys. If I got any information wrong, as always, do let me know down in the comment section below. And with that being said, I will see you guys all in the next video.